Hi, hello. This is a bit of a different thing than we are probably used to here because this is going to be the first of what I think is going to be many podcast type videos, I guess, quote unquote videos, um, that I'm going to be talking about the games I've beaten and stuff like that, and just stuff I've learned about the games after beating them and stuff I may go back and play. Like today's topic, Skyrim. I've recently been going back through and creating themed characters that I plan to make videos on in the future. Just little one off videos, like maybe I'll make Nightwolf, maybe I'll make Scorpion, Sub Zero, Shao Kahn, and some other themed characters, like Captain America, where I can only use my fists and shield, or something like that. But anyway, let's get into what Skyrim is. What Skyrim is a game where you wake up and you're being transported with these three other guys. And come to find out, they are taking you to. Oh, what's the name of the town? I forget what the name of the town is. But they are taking you to this town to behead you. And while they are beheading you, the antagonist kind of appears. The antagonist being a dragon called Alduin. And the curious thing about this is dragons are supposed to be extinct. And seeing one is obviously just mind boggling to the people that are in this town, the town of Helgen, that I just remembered. But it's mind boggling to the people of Helgen. It's mind boggling to the people that are about to behead you. Um, and for some odd reason, he doesn't exactly destroy you. He destroys the people around you and kind of sets you free. So you start making your way through the town that's burning as you're trying to escape. And you go through a few missions. You get the Dragonstone from a ancient tomb, essentially, called Bleak Falls Barrow. And then suddenly a dragon has appeared outside the city of Whiterun that you end up going to. And after you kill this dragon, you learn that you are something known as a Dragonborn, which is a mortal, or a half mortal, half dragon. You have half the soul of a mortal, half the soul of a dragon. And what that entails is you can shout like a dragon. So, like fire breath, frost breath, all that. The stuff you see in the movies of dragons breathing fire, that is them shouting. But moving past that, you then have to go to this group of people who live in the mountains called the Greybeards, where they will eventually teach you shouts and they will teach you about the history of the Dragonborn and what it means to be the Dragonborn. And all the while, there's still like this staircase that you can't go up because you haven't learned to shout to clear the storm that is blocking the way. However, eventually you get through and you find out that at the top of this mountain has been a dragon called Parthenax. He is the leader of the Greybeards, or quote unquote leader. As they like to say, there's no leaders or masters in this civilization. Which, in some parts of this city, you can definitely tell that is not the case. But, I digress on the details of what is and what is not a civilization where people like to rule over other people. However, Parthenax will eventually teach you more about what it means to be a Dragonborn. He will teach you a shout that will eventually take you back in time so you can see how Alduin wasn't necessarily destroyed the first time he was seen. He was sent forward in time to the time that your character is made. And he is connected because of that time travel, if I'm remembering this correctly. He's connected because of that time travel to the afterworld, the world known as Sovngarde. Because by technicality, he was destroyed in battle. The only way to defeat this guy is to fly, I guess, to his home and go through a portal that will take you to Sovngarde even though you are still alive. And that is just that's just weird to think about. You're still alive, but you're going essentially to Skyrim's version of heaven, the afterlife, whatever you want to call it. And you have to destroy Alduin in Sovngarde in order to complete the game. I guess complete the main story. After you do that, you are left to your own devices as far as what you want to do, because there's a lot of side quests. I guess quote unquote side quests. There's a lot of side stories that you can do. Like, you can do the Thieves Guild, you can do the Dark Brotherhood, you can do the College of Winterhold, you can do the Bard's College, and there's a whole lot of other different miscellaneous quests that you can do. And then there's the DLCs. There's the Falkreath DLC, where you can make your own house. There's the Dawnguard DLC, where you can choose to either be a vampire hunter, or you can choose to become a vampire lord, which is one that is vastly interesting to me because it introduced a new form of vampire in the Vampire Lord. It kind of looks like Dracula from the Van Helsing movie with Hugh Jackman. And eventually at the end of that, you have to kill the lead vampire, which is named Harkin. And you basically take over the vampires. Then there's the Dragonborn DLC, which originally when I first heard about it, it didn't sound like that interesting because you're already the Dragonborn. What more can they add to this Dragonborn DLC? Come to find out, it is about you going to this island known as Solstheim, or Solstheim. I don't know which one. People pronounce it differently every time I ask them. You go to this island, or, pardon me, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. These two people in this weird cultist tentacle gear come up to you and ask you if you think you are the true Dragonborn. To which they will inform you, you are mostly mistaken. Because they will then inform you that the only real Dragonborn is Mirak, which is the person they worship, which is why they have the tentacle masks. And after they tell you this, they proceed to try and kill you. Which, at the level I believe you need to be at, which I think is level 25, in order to do that mission, they are not that much of a challenge. They are solely there to inform you of the mission. And you get a letter explaining, where things are and whatnot. So, you get to the island, and it's covered in, like, this ash. Not necessarily dirt, but, like, ash. And it's a very disturbing place. But you then go through a few missions. You learn a new shout called Earthbend. I want to say that's the name of the shout. And through that, you can destroy his monuments, and you get, I believe you destroy his monuments, and then you go to this tomb to where you find a black book, which is where you get transported to this goopy world with tentacles and fish monsters all around. And that's where you find Mirak. And he basically says, "You're not worthy of the title Dragonborn," and has these tentacle monsters shout at you as he flies off on this very weird looking dragon. Then, when you get out, you then have to take the book back to these people who can translate it. And unfortunately, when the leader of these people opens the book, a tentacle punctures his heart, essentially, killing him. Then, I guess out of spite, the daughter of this leader tells you where Mirak's temple is, where his actual home, I guess, was. So you have to go there, and then once you get there, you kind of open another portal to the realm that you were at with all the green goop and the tentacles and whatnot. You have to fight through a lot of giant fish monsters that are essentially giants with a reskin. And then you have to fight Mirak. But he has a shout called Dragon Aspect, which gives him a lot of buffs to his health, his stamina, his magicka, and the damage he can do. On top of this, I believe you have to fight his dragon, which is very difficult to fight both a boss that is powered up and his dragon. But eventually, if you do beat him, you have the power at this point to take control of his dragon. And that dragon, I believe, then becomes yours. But, you know, this is all stuff that I've had to research because I've never actually completed the Dragonborn DLC. I've never gotten past level 40, I believe, in Skyrim. And that seems like a large number, but then there's stuff that happens at like level 75 where the Ebony Warrior comes to challenge you. The Ebony Warrior being a warrior who is decked out in ebony armor and uses ebony swords and whatnot. And he's a difficult fight because he's looking for his final fight. And you, unfortunately, are the one to give him that fight. Then, I don't know exactly what happens at level 100. I'd imagine something happens. If nothing happens, that's just sad. But I did a little research and found out the hard max limit for levels is 65,535. Apparently going past this will cause your game to crash due to the amount of zeros for health, stamina, or magicka that the game will need to calculate for. And the game basically says, yeah, no. But, you know, there's definitely ways to do this, as there's the new legendary thing you can do with perks where you reset the perks, or where you reset the skill tree and it gives you all the perks back, and stuff is like greater when you do the perks. Like if you're doing smithing, the crafted materials are made into better weapons or something like that. But there's definitely enough stuff to do to get up to that level, as apparently in order to do full completion of Skyrim, it would take you 230 hours of nonstop gameplay, or 9.5 days. Which may not sound like a lot, but if you're playing for 230 hours nonstop, that is a lot of Skyrim to play. That would be far too much for me to play. And I don't think that's even counting the time in between quests to like learn about the quest, to get to the quest if your location to go is not discovered yet. So there's a lot that could go into that 230 hours could end up being closer to like 3 to 400 hours of gameplay. But who knows? Um, with the characters that I play, now that we've gone over the logistics of what the game is, how long the game is, what the max level is for the game, I'm going to get into what I normally play. When I played Skyrim, I had two different saves. I had the save that I would use for recording, and then I had the save that I would use for my personal self. 9 times out of 10, the save for my personal self was a high elf. Or a wood elf. One of the two. It's the one where they get bonuses for magic, and they have a skill that they are born with called Highborn, which it regenerates your magicka at a faster rate than normal. And that was helpful because I was either a full magic user or I was a bow and arrow person. For some odd reason, I never went swords, shields, battle axes, what have you. I never did any of that. I was always magic or bow and arrow. So that kind of appealed to me, the idea of getting more magic and being able to regenerate it when I was in tight pinches. But there was some magic I didn't touch, like alteration, illusion, stuff like that, and enchanting. Those were the three I never really touched because I didn't really see the point in them. However, now I'm trying to get those as maxed out as I can because that's just more skill points to put into health, magic, what have you. So then there was the save that I had for recordings, which I believe was either an Argonian or a Khajiit, because I like the idea on camera for breathing underwater or not necessarily needing a weapon to attack, because Khajiits get claw damage bonus because of their cats. They get claws. Argonians being reptiles, they got the bonus for breathing underwater. And I forget which one I played. It may have been neither of them. I don't remember. But those two I always liked because of those effects. But I don't know. I never used them for my own personal save. They were always just like a little bit of flavor to add to the videos. Because, I don't know, people like cats and reptiles for some odd reason. Then, what else was there? There was the armor. I could never decide what armor to wear, because I always loved the Daedra armor, just because it looked like the bad guy, Sauron from Lord of the Rings. I always loved the armor because that's what it kind of reminded me of. But it was hard to get those Daedra hearts in order to make that armor. And apparently, it gives you a unlisted bonus to intimidation if they see you in Daedra, if people see you in Daedra armor. And I thought that was really cool because it's one of the hardest things to make. And it gives you that bonus of intimidation because you have to kill Daedra, which are essentially demons or devils. And people knowing that's what that armor is, and knowing that's what you had to do in order to make that armor, is just something that I thought was a little interesting. Because that kind of gives you notoriety throughout different cities and whatnot. Like, I believe that if you don't go to Riften, the guard will tell you about the tax. And if you're wearing Daedra armor, I believe you can intimidate him enough to where you are not gonna need to pay the tax. Then, of course, there's the persuade option if you want to go with that, because I think the guard freaks out with that. But yeah, that's about it for the Daedra armor. There was weapons that I couldn't figure out if they were good or not. The Daedra weapons looked amazing. The Daedra weapons almost made me break my bow and arrow using rule, because all of them looked amazing. But there were some weapons that kind of looked wonky. Like the Dragonbone weapons looked wonky to me. Then there was just, like, there was a miscellaneous tab with a shellbug helmet. I still don't know where to find shellbugs. To this day, I don't know where to find shellbugs. And I've never made that piece of armor. And that bugs me. Pun not intended. But I will eventually look up how to make it, or where to find shellbugs, because I want to make it just to say that I've made it. Because I doubt people have looked for shellbugs just for that. And it also bothered me that there's no, like, shellbug armor, shellbug boots, shellbug braces, or whatnot. Because it would just look weird with just the helmet, to me. And hopefully I'm not alone in thinking that it would look really weird just to have a bug helmet with no bug armor. Unless it's meant to go with the Falmer armor, which it could very well be the case. And if that is the case, then, you know, I'm just stupid. But that is what it is. If it goes with the Falmer armor, you know, more power to the shellbug. If it doesn't, I want to know what armor it goes to. Also, what's the deal with certain Jarls not necessarily doing anything? Like, there's the Jarl in, I want to say it's Morthal, and he has the vampire problem in a cave, like, a good few yards away from his town, and he's done nothing about it. He doesn't do anything about it until your character shows up. And then he's like, oh yes, we need to deal with this. We need to do something. You stranger who just came into town, who we held no emotional connection to, you go and destroy the vampires. Take a few people I don't really care about. It bugs me that that's how the civilization has progressed. It needed a stranger to appear and ask these questions just for them to realize this might be a problem. But, you know, if they didn't do that, I guess there wouldn't be as much quests to make up this 230 hours of gameplay. Which I'm curious if anyone has actually completed this game to its fullest. If they have, that would be very interesting to me. If they haven't, I would not be surprised at all. Because that's a lot of hours. That, like I said, 9.5 days of Skyrim. You break that up to, what, like an hour or so? That's 230 days of Skyrim. And that's almost a year of Skyrim. Wow. That's just what, 135 days? 135 and a fourth day? Wasn't that the fraction? Fourth? I don't know. But that's a lot of Skyrim to play just throughout the year. And I don't know if I would do that. Mainly what I did was the main story and the DLCs. And what I plan to do going forward is I just plan to do the characters that I've written down. I plan to do the missions I think will fit the characters. So like Nightwolf, I think I'm gonna do the Hersine quest, which if you don't know what that is a quest where you go to Falkreath and you go to the jail and there's a man locked up who actually turns out to be a werewolf. And you have to either kill him for the god Hersine and take his werewolf pelt as armor, or you help this man defeat all the hunters that Hersine had sent, and you get to keep the Ring of Hersine, which eventually, after you cleanse it, will let your werewolf powers double, I think. I don't know. It's been a while since I've done that quest, so I don't know the exact details of it. But that's the quest that I plan to do for Nightwolf, or the Nightwolf character that I am making, to the best of my ability. And that's kind of what I plan on doing for the rest of the characters I have written down. But beyond that, I don't exactly know what I would do with the characters. I don't know if I would ever get up to 65 or to level 65,535, because that's just far too much Skyrim for me. That's far too much grinding. That's far too much leveling up of skills. That's far too much of anything to me, because that's just ridiculous. But I think that's where I'm gonna leave this off. This episode of talking about Skyrim. If I find anything interesting, I'll be sure to write it down, make another episode of talking about Skyrim for you, and we'll just go from there. But until then, keep things crazy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.